Hello and welcome. This is Silvia Camerini and I'm the creatrix of the Pregnancy's Queen. I help pregnant women and new moms to reconnect to their birthing abilities and their inner wisdom to create their best birthing experience. And you are watching now Tell Your Beautiful Birth Story, one episode of this series that I created for you so that you can be inspired to create your own best birthing experience. I'm hosting a sacred space for mothers who have already given birth and who had amazing birthing experiences, for them to share their birth story so that you can be inspired to create your own. And today I got a mom of three here with me who lives in California. She is Stephanie Cotton, and I welcome her here with us. Hello, Stephanie, and thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm really excited to be here today.
I want to thank you in particular because you agreed to share an intimate part of your life, your birth story. So I know that you've got 3 children, and today you're going to tell us your experience about one birth in particular. So if you want to say something about yourself, to introduce yourself to other mothers, and then you are welcome when you want to start your storytelling. Thank you.
I started my journey 11 years ago, a little over 11 years ago, when I became pregnant with my son. And during this time period, as I got pregnant with my son, I started to delve into holistic medicine. And so now, from that journey, as I'll explain, I work as a holistic health coach. I also work as a doula, and I work as a massage therapist. So I do a lot of things, but they all kind of blend together. My son's birth transformed my life in a way I never could have imagined, and really set me on this path to help other women feel empowered, just as you do during their birthing experience, and also into parenthood. So now I work helping parents and adults as well change their life and holistic lifestyle, and really just utilize their own skills to feel good about themselves and to live happy, healthy lives. So that's a little bit about my career background. My birth experience with my son, it started when I was 23, and I think when you're 23 years old, you don't really know what you're doing. And so I got pregnant with my son, and I really had no clue what to expect. I didn't have a preconceived plan as to how I wanted to have a birth. And at the time, the only thing that I knew without a doubt was that I didn't want to have needles put in me. And as crazy as it sounds, I remember like 6 weeks pregnant, walking through the hospital, doing like one of those birthing tours. And my husband was in the military at the time, and we were stationed in England. And my very first question was, well, what if I don't want an epidural, or what if I don't want an IV? And the nurse kind of laughed at me and said, well, honey, if you're having a baby in a hospital, you're going to have needles. And so without really knowing it, that kind of set the course for my whole entire life. So I went home and I started researching how I could have my baby without using needles. And it sounds like such a silly thing, but that fear of having needles put in me really just, it made me start doing all this research into different ways that you could give birth. And at the time, like I said, I was living in the United Kingdom, and in the United Kingdom, it's very common for women to have births at home. It's not really frowned upon as much as it is here in the United States. So I found a lot of information immediately about home births. And I knew that a home birth probably wasn't right for me at that time. So I looked for kind of that in between, and I started looking for birthing centers. And I knew at the time that we were going to be moving back to the States, and I started researching birthing centers in Florida where we'd be moving. And as soon as I found the local birth center, like, I can't really explain it. I just knew, like, there was something about this place, and I had to have my baby there. And I remember getting like really emotional about it and telling my husband, like, this is where I'm going to have my baby. And he was like, but it's a house. It's a house, Stephanie. And I said, I know, but this is the place where I'm going to have my baby. I said, it's a house, but these women are trained and I can give birth, and it's supposed to be this, relaxing experience. And even though at the time I didn't really know a lot about birth, I just knew something in me said, this is how you're supposed to give birth. And the idea of having all these interventions and people telling me how to give birth just seems so wrong and against everything I felt inside of me instinctually that I was supposed to do. So I started doing more and more research, and as I did more research, I started looking at just the statistics of cesarean rates and all the complications from interventions, and I just knew there was just no way I could have my baby in a hospital. And I think that, that's a very personal choice for each individual person. And for me, I just knew I had to have my baby in a birth center. So we moved back to Florida when I was about 3 months pregnant. And then kind of came the journey of telling everybody that I was going to have my baby in a birth center. And that was probably the most difficult thing out of all of my pregnancies, was just getting the confidence to tell people and dealing with all of the criticism and people telling me I was crazy and I was going to hurt my baby and I didn't know what I was doing and I was going to change my mind and, oh, you have no idea what you're in for. And it was really difficult, but I felt like it kind of empowered me in another way, because I kind of set out to prove everybody wrong. I was like, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it natural and it's going to be an amazing experience. So I started looking into different ways to deal with the pain. And I started looking at Bradley method, and I started looking into hypnobirthing. And I really kind of became immersed in this whole idea of meditation and hypnobirthing. And I started doing all of these relaxation techniques on my own. And everything I read said you should go take a hypno class. But I just had this feeling within me that knew, like, I can do this. Like, I can teach myself how to do this. And my husband was really, really supportive. And we'd spend every night for months going through all these different hypnobirthing techniques. And then I met a woman who was a doula and a massage therapist. And, sometimes when you meet somebody, you just know they're meant to change your life. And I was having really bad sciatic pain around like 8 months. And her husband and me worked together. And he said, my wife's a massage therapist. So she came over, she gives me this massage, and she starts laughing. She goes, well, I am a massage therapist, but I'm also an acupuncturist, and I'm also a doula. And I said, oh, you're supposed to be in my life. Like, you're going to help me have my baby. And she became not just my doula, but she kind of became my mentor. And that's when it really was like, I know I can do this. So whatever it is, universe, God, however you want to look at it, I knew that this was like my journey, and I was on the right track. So I started taking herbal supplements and doing essential oils, and I really just kind of immersed myself in this whole like holistic lifestyle. And everybody around me, with the exception of probably my mom and husband, thought I was just crazy. Like, I had just lost it. And I was like, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, this, having this baby is not just having a baby. Like, this is going to be my life. And I knew immediately, like, I'm going to help other people do this, because there was nobody out there educating people on this. Everything that I was hearing was all this negative about birth. And I thought, this is crazy. This is like the most primal thing that we can do as women. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be scary and miserable. And I was excited. Like, I was nervous, but I was so excited to see what I could do and to kind of prove to myself and everybody else that birth didn't have to be this scary, terrible thing. So when I finally went into labor, that's when I was like, okay, can I really do this? And I really just kind of went into myself, and I had a really long labor. I went into labor at like, I think it was around 10 o'clock at night. And I didn't progress past 4 centimeters for a good 12 hours. And the whole time it was just very calm and peaceful. My husband was there. I remember the birth center that we were at was on the ocean. So we would go out and I would walk, and it was just this most amazing, like, almost like a spiritual experience. And it sounds kind of silly when you tell people that, because you're in labor and it hurts. But there's no way around it. It's uncomfortable, but to be out and be on the ocean and to kind of have all the energy from the water and the moon, it just felt like an amazing opportunity to connect with my son. And by the time we finally decided, I think it was around like 2:00, I said, can we break my water? Because I don't think we're going anywhere. And they said, yeah, if you want to do this. And I had spent, all that time between walking, and then I decided I wanted to do a water birth. And so I was in and out of the water. And what was ironic is I wanted to be in the water. I just felt like I had to be in the water. And my son ended up being a Pisces, which is a water sign. And once we finally got into like really active labor, I can remember I had a doula sitting there, my husband was sitting there, and everybody was like, are you okay? Because it was just so quiet. Like, I didn't yell. There was no noise. And I just remember going, don't talk to me. Just let me like focus. And I was just focusing on, every single contraction. I remember thinking of it like a wave and just trying to stay relaxed and kind of like riding that wave. And I'd learned all these visualizations about, really imagining that your cervix is opening up, and, to tell people that, they always laugh at me. And I tell my mom, it really works. Like, I can't tell you like how comforting it is if you think of it like that. And it's not that it's not uncomfortable, but if you really just sit back, and I remember thinking, this is what my body's supposed to do, and taking that pain element out and just really telling myself, like, this is what it's doing. It's stretching, it's pushing things down. This isn't pain. This is just my baby coming out into the world. I think that's what enabled me to stay like so calm. And so the whole entire time I was just sitting in the water, going through like transition, and everybody was just like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. Like, it's uncomfortable, but I'm fine. And when he finally got to the stage where I could push, that's finally when I started to make like a little bit of noise. And from the point where they broke my water to actually having him was 30 minutes. So I went from like 4 or 5 centimeters to fully dilated. So I do remember having like a moment of like panic because it was so fast, but I was able to, because of all of the breathing and like meditation, just kind of like calm myself down. And that's where, for me, my doula became really helpful, because even though I wasn't freaking out on the outside, like hearing her voice just telling me like, okay, this is natural. Your body's about to, let you finally push your baby out. You're okay. And just kind of reminding me to relax. That's probably one of the most helps that I had during the whole process. So I gave birth in water, which was, I can't even really describe how magical and amazing that was. And when I told people I was going to do a water birth, they were like, your baby's going to drown. You're crazy. And I was like, that, if you look at the research shows you that that is completely false. But to me, it just felt like, even without that, it was just such a natural way to have the baby come into the world. And I wanted my son to come in a very peaceful and like harmonious way. And he came out and he was beautiful. And it was just this like magical, emotional experience. And I knew like the second that I had, that my life was like completely forever changed. And I know parents always say that, but like, he just changed everything. The way I looked at life, the way I looked at how you heal yourself, the way you look at the world, the universe, everything in this one little human being. And I knew that I had to be a part of helping other people do that. And I really believe that my ability to stay calm and my ability to meditate and really like go within helped me connect with him during the birth. And I can remember just visualizing him and I could just feel his spirit. And, to this day, we're extremely close. And he was just the most calm, sweet baby you can imagine. And I really believe that it had to do with the birth experience. He didn't have all the trauma. He didn't have people passing him around. Like, when you give birth at a birth center, your baby doesn't leave. And for me, like, that was so important that my son got to stay with me and that I got to be the one to hold him for the first few hours. Even when we did the checkups, like, they came to the bed and they checked all of his vitals. And, you know, it was so important to me to have those moments with him. And, you know, you can't even put that into words. And when I go now and watch other people give birth, I feel like almost sad for them, because I don't think they quite realize that really important aspect that you miss when your baby's taken from you and passed around to all these different people immediately. And, you know, for me, it was just super important that we all had that time, and I didn't have a lot of strangers touching my baby. So, you know, having him really made me more aware. And, you know, and he set the tone for my next children. You know, I went on to have 2 more children, and, you know, my second one I had at a birth center, and my last one I ended up doing a home birth. And I always attribute all of those experiences to him, because, you know, he is what made me start doing research, and he's the one that really made me trust myself. And I think that's what it comes down to is, you know, it's so ingrained in us that childbirth has to be this, like, difficult, hard, painful experience. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be that way, and there's complications that can arise and things happen. And I think, you know, they can happen, absolutely, but it doesn't have to be that way. And, you know, for me, I can't even put into words, like, how amazing it feels to know that I had all those moments with my children the second they were born. Like, each one of them never left my side for days and days and days. And not too many moms can say that. And so that's what really kind of put me on my journey, is just to help support women. And I think it's so important that women understand, like, what they're able to do and what their bodies are capable of. You know, giving birth is the most natural thing that we're able to do. It's everybody else that confuses it for us and makes us feel like we have to have help in it. It's great to have support, but, you know, it's such an invigorating, empowering thing to give birth. And, you know, I feel like it's kind of sad that we've robbed women of that. And I don't know, for me, it changed my life, and it's really put me on the path to everything, and it's made me reevaluate so many things. So that was my experience with my son, and it was amazing.
Thank you, Stephanie, for your sharing. Thank you so much. So what I perceived during your storytelling was a great sense of calmness and your will at the same time to do things your own way. And this thing that you followed, your inner voice, and you were determined to follow it no matter what, impressed me. So I'd love to ask you, how do you think we can help women to follow their inner voice, to really create their birthing experience the way they deeply desire inside themselves?
You know, it's funny you asked that, because I went back to school to be a counselor, and one of the reasons I did that was I really wanted to work with women who were giving birth. And in that, I feel like there's this disconnect for women, and that we feel empowered. And I feel like a lot of that comes from past experiences that we've had. And so when I decided to go back to school, it came from my own experiences of giving birth and my own feelings of insecurities. And so I thought, I really want to help women feel empowered in this process. I want them to look at their life and what's happened, more reevaluate what's happened in your life that you feel like you can't do this on your own, or even going into, like, motherhood. I mean, all these emotions follow you into parenting as well. So I feel like as women who have had positive birth experiences, it's almost our duty to share this experience and to, you know, share with other women that, you know, you can do this. And there is good births out there. And sure, there's things that can happen, but there's a lot of really good that can come from it. And even if you've had experiences maybe in life where you've been disempowered, or people have told you you can't do things. I think it really comes back to stronger women kind of lifting other women up and showing them they have this capability. Because I feel like we've kind of had it knocked out of us a little bit. We've had society tell us that it's not normal, it's not natural. So as other women that know differently, it's kind of our duty to tell other women. And I think, we're starting to see more and more of this happening, more and more, groups such as yourself, like Ricky Lake came out with The Business of Being Born. Like, we're starting to see women are becoming more vocal about their births. And I think we have to just keep doing what we're doing and getting the word out there and, encouraging women. And the more they start to see that it's not just, and I hate to say it like this, but sometimes people kind of get this idea that it's like people who are uneducated that are doing home births or natural childbirths, but seeing like there's educated, smart women out there that are giving birth naturally because they know that's what's best for their baby and or for themselves. And not that I feel like every woman should have the right to choose the birth they want, however they want to have it. But I feel like a lot of times women just don't have the information. So I feel like by doing things like this, it really helps empower other women.
And another thing that I love to discuss with you is that you ask the support for example, from your doula, or you have a supporting husband. So you had supporting people around you. How much do you think this made a difference for you to create the birth you wanted to have?
Oh, it was huge. My husband being a support was huge because I felt like the birth was, while I was doing it, part of it was his process as well. It was still his child being born. So I felt like if he would have gone against my wishes, I probably still would have done it, but it would have been hard. So it really helped to have that support. Having a doula, I can't even explain how much that helped. My husband and me joke that with our first child, if we wouldn't have had a doula, we probably both would have fell apart. And I think having somebody there that without a doubt is gonna support you and remind you, even if you don't need the techniques that they are able to give you, having that person there, it just helps. I can't even explain it. And as you start to form a bond with your doula. I'm actually, to this day, I still talk to my doula. There's just something about her comfort and her presence. And that's what made me want to do it. Just the way she made me feel and her knowledge, but it was like having, it's better. It was, I can't even explain it. It was almost like as a little kid when something bad happens and you lay in your mom's lap and they give you this sense of comfort. It was that comfort knowing that somebody was there who understood, who was going to support you no matter what. And that's why I do what I do, because it was just so important. I do not think my birth would have been as good as it is if I had not had a doula.
Which is the biggest difference that you can perceive within yourself from where you was just a woman and then when you became a mother? So which is the personal experience you went through, your personal transformation you went through in the journey to become a mother?
Oh, wow. I think the first thing that happens when you become a mom, and that becomes the second you're pregnant, I think, for me at least is you become less selfish. And for me, everything came down to what was good for my son. And, I didn't learn it all the first go around. I've got 3 kids and it's taken, 11 years. But every single birth I've had, I've reevaluated myself as a person. I've reevaluated my eating, like everything. I compare where I was with my son to where I am with my daughters. And even just looking like from a nutritional standpoint, I kind of cringe when I think about the things I ate with my son. And I thought I was doing what was best. But as you grow as a person and as a parent, you start to delve more into what's good for you. And now, my diet's a million times different. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat processed food. So, there were so many changes that's happened inside out. For me, some of the biggest changes came when I had girls, just really looking at, setting a really positive example. For me, getting pregnant with my first daughter, that put me, I actually went back to counseling for that, to really just kind of work on my own issues, because I thought, oh no, I'm going to be somebody's role model, a female role model. I have to be the best one. And so for me, it's been a lot of self-work. Every time I have a baby, my husband jokes around. He said, every time you have a baby, you do something different. You get on this new path and you do more self-work. And I'm like, I know, because I feel this greater need. Every child is just pushing me towards being a better person. And it just makes, I feel like I have a duty to my kids to be the best person I can and to set the best example. And especially as a woman, for my girls, I want them to grow up and be strong, independent women who trust themselves. And I can't do that if I don't trust myself. So it's a process. I'm definitely not completely there. I don't know if I'll ever be completely there, but every day I just work to be a better person. And, that's another reason I'm going to school to be a counselor, is to help other women just, really trust in themselves. Because I feel like as parents, we turn to other people for guidance and advice when we don't trust our instincts. And a lot of what you need in parenting and childbirth, all those things come from inside. You just have to trust it. And so you have to have the confidence to trust that. And for me, being a parent has just, it's made me such a better person. And I feel like, I'm lucky, and that it put me in a career path. And so I get to intertwine these things. And my life started when I had my babies, and they've made me definitely a better person. And I feel like a much stronger woman.
Which one do you think is the benefit, or are the benefits of telling your story? How do you feel now that you've told your story, you shared your story with other women, and you spread, this message of positivity and of listening to your inner voice around the world?
Well, I feel like the benefit is that other women may find a connection with my story. Even just hearing somebody else tell their story, even if you don't necessarily have the same things in common, we're all women and we all have some of the same struggles. So I feel like being able to tell my story in itself, it's empowering for me, and hopefully somebody else will hear it and it'll give them confidence to realize they can do it themselves. I wasn't raised in a household that promoted natural childbirth. I wasn't raised necessarily to be a strong independent. These are all things that have come on my own from having children and doing my own research. So I feel like if other women know that they have that capability in them, to hear other women say it, maybe that'll help them as well. And I just think I can't really reiterate enough, hearing the positive is what women need. We hear so many of the negative. Every single time I have had a baby, the first thing somebody tells me is a negative story. You never hear the amazing births that come. You never hear somebody go, oh, my sister gave birth and it was the most amazing experience. You always hear the negative. So I feel like the more positive that we even just put out into the universe, hopefully it's going to attract more, and more people are going to be drawn to that positivity versus the negativity.
This is the most important goal for me, to spread the positivity, because positive stories are never enough. And yes, the world maybe is more based on the negative side of life, while we need to celebrate what we've got and all the positive things that we've got. So thank you for this, Stephanie. And is there any message that you want to share from your heart to the other women's hearts before to say goodbye and wrap up this sacred call.
You have it in you. It is your primal instinct to give birth to your babies. And no matter what anybody tells you, you have the power and the strength to have the birth you choose. And your birth sets the tone for how you raise your children. And you want to set it off on a good note. So trust yourself and look at your birth as a beautiful spiritual experience it's supposed to be.
Thank you for sharing your story, for spreading a positive message around births, and to be here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.